I'm Diane, a Green Iowa AmeriCorps member from Iowa City, and I love soil. I love how soil produces good things to eat, and I love how my compost pile turns food waste back into great soil. In this video lesson, we'll explore what makes soil so amazing. First, we must answer the question, what is soil? And for that, I'll turn things over to the science basement.
How many of us really understand what soil is? I want you to imagine for a moment that you reach down and pick up a handful of soil. Do you really know what you're holding? What's in it? What it's composed of? Most people think of soil as really being just solid material, just crushed up rocks that are really small. But in reality, that solid portion or that mineral portion accounts for less than half of that handful, only 45%. The remainder of what you're holding is in equal parts of water and air, each is about 25%. And lastly, there's usually an average of about 5% organic matter. Within that mineral fraction or the solid fraction of the soil, there are different particle sizes, and I'm sure these terms will be familiar to you. There is sand, silt, and clay. These particles are defined by their different sizes. Sand ranges in size from 2 to 0.05 millimeters, silt from 0.05 to 0.002 millimeters, and clay is anything less than 0.002 millimeters. It's really hard to put these into perspective because clay particles are so small. In fact, over 50 million of the biggest particles of clay could fit in a single grain of sand.
So soil is made up of 45% minerals, 25% water, 25% air, and 5% organic matter, and it is called sand, silt, or clay based on its particle size. But is it all the same from ground level down to the Earth's bedrock? No. We can talk about soil's profile in terms of its horizons.
A soil profile is a bit like a mugshot for soils because it allows you to see the different layers. Each layer has a name, and they're called horizons. The very first layer, or horizon, is the O horizon. This usually isn't considered soil yet, and in fact, the best way to think of this horizon is as organic matter. It's typically composed of decaying plant material like leaves, roots, and sticks, and is typically characterized by a dark color. The next horizon is the A horizon, and this is what most people know of as topsoil. Again, it has a darker color because of the addition of organic matter from above. The next layer below the A horizon is the B horizon, which a lot of people call subsoil, but in reality, it's called a zone of accumulation. This is where materials like clay collect in the soil profile from the movement of water downward. The next horizon is the C horizon, and this horizon is typically characterized by a lighter color, maybe even an increased presence of rocks, and in a lot of situations is known as the parent material, or what the soil originally formed from. In some cases, beneath the C horizon, you can have the R horizon, which a lot of people know of as bedrock. When the bedrock is present in the soil profile, it would be called the parent material, or the material that this soil originally formed from.
To get a hands-on understanding of soil horizons, you might like to make what I call Dirt Pudding 2.0. The ingredients are the same as dirt pudding, just add a few extra varieties of cookies which you will crush up into crumbs. Here is our finished dirt pudding complete with soil horizons. At the very top, the darkest stuff, this is our humus layer, recently decomposed plants from the forest floor. Just below that, this is layer A, the topsoil layer, also very dark because it's full of organic matter. Then below that we have layer B, the subsoil layer. It's a little lighter in color because the minerals leach out of it. This layer is layer C, our parent material, and then down at the bottom is our bedrock, made with chocolate chips. Mr. Worm says, I love soil. So now we know what soil is like, but we might wonder, how does it form? For that, we'll turn back to the science basement.
So we all know that soil comes from rock originally, but how do you get from this to this? The key word is weathering. Weathering basically means the breakdown of rocks into smaller and smaller pieces, and that helps make up soils. Weathering can happen in several different ways, and one of these ways is physical breakdown. Anytime that you have rocks that crash into other rocks or fall down, small pieces will break off and contribute to soil formation. Another big player in weathering is water. Raindrops falling on rocks and other surfaces, and also the movement of water can contribute to soil formation by dislodging small pieces of rock. Think of how the Grand Canyon was formed. It was formed almost entirely from water. All that rock that used to be there is now soil for someone else. Another contributor is temperature. Rocks actually expand and contract depending on the temperature, which can cause small cracks to form. If water gets into these cracks and freezes, it will expand and continue to make those cracks larger and contribute to soil formation by breaking the rocks into smaller pieces.
So, weathering describes the formation of soil from rocks. Do any other factors contribute to the formation of soil? As a matter of fact, yes.
If you take a close look at soils, you'll see roots, insects, fungi, bacteria, and so many other things, and they all contribute to soil formation because they break rocks and soils into smaller and smaller pieces.
Soil is teeming with life. There are more organisms in 1 tablespoon of healthy soil than there are people on Earth. Soil hosts a quarter of our plant's biodiversity, yet we only know 1% of this universe. Soil organisms work in a coordinated effort to sustain life on Earth. Soil is where our food begins. Did you know that 95% of our food comes from soil? This is important because experts estimate that the global population will reach almost 10 billion by 2050. Soil organisms support plant growth and improve agriculture production. They also support human health as a source of medicines. Most antibiotics are made from soil microorganisms. Soil organisms restore the health of the soil by breaking down and filtering out pollution. Perhaps most importantly, soil organisms play a key role in mitigating climate change by storing carbon in the soil. You can learn all about this from the book and documentary Kiss the Ground and at their website, The Soil Story. Climate change, as we know, is all about too much carbon in our atmosphere. But carbon is not our enemy. It's the building block of life. Everything alive is made of it. It's us. The problem and solution are simply a matter of balance. Let's step back and look at the 5 pools where carbon is stored on planet Earth. Starting at about 500 million years ago, when plants came onto land, carbon began to cycle in an amazing balance between these pools, a balance that allowed for life as we know it to evolve. Then one life form, us, figured out how to extract carbon from the fossil pool. We've been burning it for energy, putting it into play, disrupting that balance. The way we manage land and do agriculture is moving even more carbon into the atmosphere. Specifically, we've moved 880 gigatons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is heating up the planet and destabilizing our climate. Now, the oceans have absorbed a lot of this excess carbon, which is resulting in ocean acidification and accelerating a mass extinction of sea life. So, in order to save life as we know it, of course, we have to stop releasing fossil carbon. The big question is, where do we put this excess carbon to get this cycle back in balance? The good news is that the solution is right under our feet. It's the soil. Plants, with sunlight and water, perform photosynthesis. They pull carbon in from the air and turn it into carbohydrates, sugars. Then they pump some of these sugars down through their roots to feed microorganisms who use that carbon to build soil. Voila! Carbon moved. The plants pump it in and the soil stores it. Nature's living technology is amazing. Scientists have recently discovered that applying a thin layer of compost one time sets up an ongoing positive feedback loop that brings more and more carbon into the soil each year. Together with other regenerative practices like not tilling the soil, planting trees and cover crops, and planned grazing, we can build and retain billions of tons of soil carbon. This is carbon farming. This is regenerative agriculture. Unlike carbon in the atmosphere, more carbon in the ground is good for us. It makes healthy soil, which is nutrient-rich and full of life and holds way more water. That means more nutritious food and crops that are more resilient in the face of drought. That's good news for farmers, families, and everyone who eats. Remember this, the way we grow our food, fiber, and fuel either puts carbon up into our atmosphere or pulls it down into the ground. The regeneration of soil is the task of our generation. Our health, the health of our soils, and the health of our planet are one and the same. Knowing that our health and the health of our planet is tied to soil, food, and compost, it is hard to understand why we make so much food waste, or why we send it to the landfill instead of composting it. At this point, you might be wondering, how can I help? What can I do? Well, one thing you can do is to learn everything you can about composting and share that knowledge with everyone around you.